Hey little puffins, thank you for tuning in for another episode of Eat Puff Love. Due to audio complications, part of this episode might be a little challenging to hear. Our sincerest apologies, but keep on listening. And remember to
Eat
Puff Love. Now keep on listening.
Hello, little puffins, and welcome to another episode of Eat Puff Love. We are your host, Growlr.
And I'm your boy, Vybz.
How you feeling today, Vybz?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good, actually. The sun came out. It was raining earlier.
Yes, it was a little rainy here earlier today, but it is not raining anymore. Blue skies, sunshine, and a good conversation ahead of us. We have a guest on Eat Puff Love today.
Yes, let's welcome Cary Alan Johnson to our podcast. Everybody say hello.
Hey, brothers. It's so good to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's Friday. It's been a long week. Today is like post Thanksgiving, so I made it through. Thanksgiving and all of the challenges and joy that brings. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah, we actually decided to have our own little non-traditional Thanksgiving.
Yay!
And this morning, eating leftovers from that.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
I have my grandmother's famous sweet potato cornbread. It is nothing like the way she makes it, but it is still damn good.
Okay, so why do you call it your grandmother's sweet potato cornbread if it's nothing like she makes it? It's inspired by grandma.
Inspired by.
It's inspired by grandma, but it's important to acknowledge the ancestors when you're in the kitchen.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And so I gotta remember who taught me how to do it, and and from there I'll expand and make it better and better and better. One day somebody will be calling it their grandfather's sweet potato cornbread.
Right, hopefully. Yeah.
And it all started with Jiffy.
So, Cary, you are currently not in the U.S., is that correct?
That's right. I live in Burundi, which is a very small country in Central Africa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to hear the Genesis story.
We want to know how you got there.
And we haven't told people, but go ahead.
Okay, the brief version. I have been working in Africa a good part of my career. You guys are going to plug the book, but I'll plug it too. There's a couple chapters in the book that we'll talk about desire lines that sort of recount some of the experiences that my narrator has that I shared. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Central Africa back in the 80s. There was a country called Zaire, which no longer exists. It's now called the Democratic Republic of Congo. So anyway, I sort of got bit by the Africa bug. Went to the University of Nairobi as an undergraduate for, my junior year abroad. And so, I did a degree in international relations and African studies at Columbia University. And so I've been working in Africa pretty much, most of my adult life and most of my career, and it's been quite the journey. And so right now I'm in Burundi, and I've been here the last 3 years working on development programs, mainly like family planning. We run family planning clinics around the country, malaria prevention and treatment, and HIV treatment.
Okay.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, that's so many cool things. And you're right. We didn't plug the book first, and I'm so glad that
that's all right. We got time.
I have plenty of time.
We got time because this week is hidden over here, child. I am very interested in. Tell me how an author finds themselves in the Peace Corps. Now, I know from reading the book and understanding how you got there, but tell our listeners a little bit how you got to this point in your life.
I've been having my book came out 2.5 months ago, and I've been having this debate with myself, whether I am a novelist or I am a guy who wrote a novel. And they're both good things. But I just say that to say that being a writer has been, part of who I am from, who I've been from the early days. Like like a lot of young people, I wrote poetry, in high school and college to keep from going crazy, to like let all those feelings kind of, come to the surface. And it was, of course, awful poetry, but I wrote it anyway, and it saved my life. And but I'm no poet. But I am a writer, and I was part of a couple of groups of writers that emerged in the 80s. One was the Black Heart Collective, and the other was Other Countries. And these were groups of Black gay men who were, artists, mainly writers, who were trying to write down the history of, the truth about our experiences before we died. And I don't say that to be maudlin or, overly, sympathetic to create, draw sympathy, but just to say that was the truth. There was a very strong sense in the 80s, particularly before, HIV testing was available, that if you were sexually active and you were Black or Latino, you were probably going to die. So there was definitely a strong need, to like write it down before we died. So as part of Other Countries and the Black Heart Collective, we produced a number of journals that are still available, of poetry, prose, writing for the screen. So anyway, I've been writing for a very long time, and I finally decided, about 5 years ago, that it was time to write a novel. Yeah. And that's what I did.
And that's what you did. And so let's not say the title of the book anymore, because it's an awesome book. It took me, I would say, maybe a week to like digest.
You got through it pretty
fast. Right. But the novel is called Desire Lines, and it's a novel. And you said, Cary, that it's based loosely off your life. Is it semi-autobiographical? Biographical? Did I say that right? Biographical. Autobiographical. Semi-autobiographical. There we go. Got tongue-tied.
Yeah. Sure. I think that many first novels, debut novels, it's so funny when, people say this is my debut novel, because I've been writing for a really long time, and I'm 62 years old. So it's kind of weird to think of being a debutante in any part of my life. But I guess, this is my first novel. But yeah, and I think like a lot of first novels, authors draw from their personal experience. I think what makes this book seem probably even more kind of, well, is this a memoir or what? Is because I write in the first person. I'm writing. I use the I, and I just sort of chose to do that. I could have just as easily used the third person, but I wanted the book to feel personal. Yeah. I wanted people to be able to like really see themselves in the character and not be able to run away from the turmoil and the terror that the character was feeling. And I'm really glad when I hear you say you read it in a week, because I myself am a very slow reader. Yes. Oh God. And that's okay. Yes. We digest, slow readers, we digest with more depth, I think, which is fine. Like I just finished Brian Broom's memoir, Punch Me Up to the Gods, which won the Kirkus Prize last year. And it took me like 2 weeks to read it, but I loved every moment of it. So when you say you read it in a week, several people have told me that Desire Lines is a quick read, and I like that because I don't want to get bogged down. The story has to flow, and it has to be exciting, and people have to want to know what's coming next, and what's this bitch up to next, and what's gonna happen, and especially once it starts moving into some of his experiences with drugs, experiences with sex. I mean, shit speeds up, and so I like the fact that nobody's telling me, oh, Cary, you really could have edited 50 or 60 pages out of this.
No, not at all. I actually, when I picked the book up, I have to get started reading, but then I start to digest, and I'm really trying to put myself in the mind of the character. So I really was one of those readers who was like, well, where is this going next? How's it going to all turn out? And so for me, I was able to do that. And what I really liked in your advance praise, I think the author of 100 Boyfriends, Brontez Purnell, said, and I completely agree with this, is that it's poetic, but it's still modest. For me, the book was telling because there's like a different, I think I read something, and I'm paraphrasing now, like in your body, you have all these different experiences and lifetimes in one lifetime.
Yeah.
And I really experienced that while reading your book. Welcome back, Little Puffins. Thank you for listening.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
We're here with the newly debutanted author, Mr. Cary Alan Johnson, the novelist of Desire Lines.
Yes.
And we are going to dive into the book.
Yes, I want to jump in because before the break, you mentioned how you got into the book and it was easy for you to get into the book. And for me, I think I'm 35, and so a lot of the stories that were taking place in the 80s was hard for me because I was looking at it and realizing that that there was a lot I didn't know about the time of AIDS, and not just the time of AIDS. That's not the way I want to say it. The time of the AIDS epidemic. And so, like, being a young person at that time, I was born in 87, so I saw a lot of the transitions that happened, and a lot of the resources come out in the 90s, and but I still remember family members who were othered, and who were told, we were told, stay away from them because they were weird, or they were gross, or they were sickly. And so, like, I struggled because I spent so much time reading and then going back, and then reading and then going back, and then Wikipediaing and then going back, and then, like, I found myself in a constant loop of, like, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. Yeah, it's just I think it's an interest for me. It's an interesting perspective because, like I said, I didn't grow up in the 80s. That's not a question.
I'm fascinated by it.
Same here.
I'm fascinated by it. I'd love to know what you didn't know that was made clearer. Because like people ask me, look, I think whenever, I don't know, when you're writing a book, I think, and like I'm not speaking from all this experience. I've only written one novel, but I've done plenty of short stories and articles, and you're writing with an audience in mind. You may want other people to be able to appreciate it, but you do have your target reader, and my target reader was a black gay man of in their 50s and 60s. my target. And, I was so blessed to be able to do a book tour and go around the country and read from the book in September. And I just want to shout out to one of our, two of our leaders, Phil Wilson in LA, who, created the Black AIDS Institute back in the 80s, and Keith Boykin, the author and commentator. Those brothers threw a wonderful event for me in LA that was, jam-packed, like maybe 100, brothers of a certain age. And it was so gratifying to, because our we were so invisibilized in the AIDS epidemic. There's some wonderful, wonderful books about films, plays, Angels in America, The Hours, The Band Played On, just some really wonderful stuff. We're Black, about AIDS, Philadelphia, the film, where Black people are kind of, sidekicks, or we're there to help the white people die, or, and our stories haven't been told. And so I just felt, even now I get notes from people, from time to time saying, wow, Cary, you really took me back. Even stuff as simple as the places where we used to cruise.
Yes, that was no, for real. And that was the thing, is like when as a younger person who would be like searching for, where are these gay spaces that this is when I was in high school trying to figure out, like, where is everybody hanging out, and like, where are folks going, and where are all these men at? And
but did you not really know that?
Because I discovered theaters in college.
Well, I'm not talking about theaters in general. I'm talking about the whole idea that there's this. Well, we've had this conversation before because of how we've matriculated through our queerness. Yes. Because I'm the exact opposite. So, Cary, I'm 43, but everything that you wrote in the book, I had some understanding or experience, if not directly through myself, but people that I was around. Because when I came to Washington, D.C., where I currently live, I presented older, so I was able to get into places that, like, at 17, that most of my friends couldn't get into. So all of my friends were, Black, gay, middle-class men who had come to DC and did their thing, and so they knew everywhere to go. The Bachelor's Mill, the fireplace. They had these experiences where I remember a time where, everybody was bulking up to try to show up as if healthy.
Oh my God! Right.
And how that kind of displaced a lot of people who didn't look that way.
I caught the tail end of a lot of that, and like I remember going to the clubs and people saying things like that, but people saying it so rarely that I didn't really understand what they were talking about, and really understanding, like, I feel like I caught a lot of the tail end of, like, understanding of, like, the discrimination that was happening concerning that within the community itself.
But I think okay.
Well, I'm glad for you. I'm glad for you that you caught the. I wouldn't want you to have gone through it. It was awful.
Yeah.
And there was, look, life gives you what life gives you. Life gives you your moment, and one period is not maybe any harder than another. I don't know, in an existential way of looking at it, but it was a particularly traumatic period to be a coming of age, and, like coming into your 20s in a moment where, and sort of finding just like, finally you got this queer, well, we didn't use the term queer back then, but, gay, proud, I am who I am, and the scene in the garage to me is this scene where, he's standing in his glory, right? Finally. And then like this weight drops on your head. That you and sort of everyone around you, your days are numbered. And I'm so glad you mentioned that piece about bulking up, because like people were like in the gym, and it created this whole kind of, it was a cultural thing that the gay men who were considered attractive, you had to have muscles, and it was because if you looked big, then you probably were not sick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think that, though that time, in the the afterthoughts of it all, the people who have come through it, like I was on the tail end, but I do recall and remember, but I think you were talking about the scene, is that the scene in the club, the garage scene?
Yeah.
Where the character is having a little fun on the dance floor and kind of standing into his own power. Yeah, I felt like everybody, or maybe not everybody, maybe I have had that moment. It's like, so there was a lot of connections for me there.
Good, and it's usually drug induced.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but I'm not. I mean, everybody's not into drugs or wasn't into drugs. I mean, but the drug experience, the experience of drugs of whatever kind, was part of the sort of young gay life, and I mean, had this sublime moments of being on the dance floor, at a huge discotheque, and in the book, the character is, and his friend have just done acid, and what that does. I mean, and drug, and similarly to sex, sex is sex. Whatever. It's not, drugs are drugs. It's not, it's not nirvana. It's just it's a physiological experience. But what I try and do in the book is I try and sort of say, well, how does the drug experience, or how does this experience on acid, in the club, what does that tell the reader about him? And in that scene, he's able to finally realize that he is surrounded by all of these beautiful black men that he has never seen before, that his eyes have never been open to them before. Because like a lot of us, I think you grow up, particularly those of us who grew up in the 70s and the 80s, your standard of beauty was white. Okay. Like you were, the Marlboro Man, that is, and in the gay life, that was who, let me speak from my own experience, lusted after. And so in the club that night, what happens to him is the drug experience allows him to open his eyes. It allows him to see his tribe, and it almost becomes animalistic. I mean, they actually start barking in the club. And if you've been in a club, people bark. I mean, I don't know. Do people still bark in clubs?
They bark. Okay. They growl.
Well, Growlr, then you're in good shape. Then you are right where you need to be. Do they really growl? No, they don't bark.
People bark. They growl. They make all. On the dance floor with a house track, there's all kind of things happening, as people know. But I'm glad you touched on that.
We barked. We barked.
I'm glad you touched on that, because the time frame of, we're talking about standards of beauty, one based off of like the reality of trying to cloak what may be inevitable, which is you may be HIV positive at the time, and so you're bulking up. And then the other side of it is desirability based off of what the mainstream says. Right. And as a reader, even though I knew that this was in a certain time, I was always looking for the moment when this character was going to be like, I really am embracing my blackness. And I felt like there were moments of that. And then I also felt like there was also a lot of self-doubt. So I guess I'm wondering, even like when the character goes to Africa in the Peace Corps and has that moment with the person who works on the grounds. No, I'm not.
No,
we'll talk about she's the friend.
Okay, we'll talk about Regina.
Yeah. But it was just
with Augustin, the driver.
Yeah, the driver.
Right.
It seemed like there was still like struggle. So do you feel like when writing this that the character ever comes to a point, or is it still a work in process, where it's like, yes, I'm a black man, I find other black men attractive, and it's not all sexual. And though there were experiences, I don't want to give too much of the book away. I think I'm rambling now. But yeah, I guess what I'm asking is, was there ever a moment where you feel the character kind of alleviated themselves of that struggle?
Yeah, that's a interesting. No one's ever really raised that or asked me that, and I don't mind talking. I don't mind giving pieces of the book away because I want people to buy it, and I think it's available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle.
Plug it. Tell us where it is.
You know, come on, that's the reality of what we got to do. But I mean, to answer your question, no, he never does. Fully, self-actualize, and I guess do any of us ever, would be my question. I watched this wonderful thing. I May Destroy You. Did you guys see that? It was at HBO. This brilliant series by this British black writer and actress. Anyway, what I loved about it was it didn't just all wrap up, because life doesn't, in my opinion, all just wrap up. Okay. So now, glad I'm over that. Glad I'm not using drugs anymore. Glad I'm not, now I'm not, obsessed with white guys anymore. Glad that's done. Life is not like that, in my humble opinion. I think it gets better. I think we get clearer on who we are. But I think that I think the best we can hope for is clarity on why we make the choices that we make. Not that we don't keep making bad choices. Maybe we make fewer. Maybe I make fewer as I get older. But at least when I do, I'm like, I see that one. I see what you just did here, Cary. And I think for the main character, and I'm not saying his name because, dear listener, because he is actually not named. He does not have a name.
All right.
Did that confuse you?
No.
So I got my little notes, and I've been writing names left and right.
Yeah.
And I realized, what is the? I even asked you. I said, what is the main character's name? I feel like I keep looking back. I even went back
right
earlier in the book where you were like, the character was interacting with mom. I'm like, maybe mom, like,
or the brother, or
Eugene. Wait, is his name Eugene or Kev? Eugene?
I'm making up names. I'm just saying.
Should we call him Eugene?
We should call him. You know what? We should call him. We should leave him nameless.
Yeah, I agree, because I think I wondered about that too, and I had to go back after reading through it. I was like, there has to be. It was uttered at least once, and I missed it somewhere. Yeah. But now, having this conversation with you now, it makes sense to leave the main character nameless, because this is a story of many.
Yeah.
One story is just not one story. It's the story of many. And I think that's where we were saying the connection part, that we were making even throughout different time frames, different generations of reader.
Yeah, and even like I found myself as somebody who has been in a long-term relationship with a white person, like having all kinds of feelings about Steve and having all kinds of feelings.
Oh, talk about that. Hold up now. No. Now the interview becomes interesting.
Right.
The rest has just been blah, blah, blah.
Welcome back, little puffins. Welcome back. We are here with the phenomenal Cary Alan Johnson, the author, novelist of Desire Lines.
Cary Alan Johnson, his first novel, many more to come.
Many more to come.
8 more to come. We've been promised
8?
promised 13 volumes.
But yes, let's chat a little bit. We haven't talked about puffing, and there is some puffing that happens in the book. You know, cannabis is a thread throughout. I think it, like most things in life, it's a thread. And there were a lot of great moments, I think, where you really described, like, it was like the casualness of cannabis use, even during the time frame, but also it was never seen as like something that was a not good thing.
Yeah, it was never a negative.
Would you agree with that?
I'm trying to remember. You know, maybe it's funny because like I'm trying to even remember when there was puffing in the book. Because and I guess that goes to show you that I never thought of it as anything other than the normal thing that young Black people. Oh, I know one place. Oh, I know. I remember now. At least one place is there's the high school kind of flashback when him and his friends are sitting on a bench in Washington Square Park. Right. You guys are from where? Washington, I heard. Yeah. I heard you say, and where else?
We both live in D.C. now, but I'm from St. Louis.
Okay.
I'm from St. Louis.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, great. Yeah. Well, y'all know Washington Square Park. It was, you know, where, you know, on the NYU campus, it was where you went to puff. And it was part of the experience of young hippie kind of kids, you know, counterculture kids kind of growing up in New York. And I think it's part of the, you know, the working class Black experience too. Weed was, you know, why smoke cigarettes? You know, smoke weed. I mean, that makes life, you know, more kind of accessible. So those.
I still do those things.
Well, yeah, I don't because
weed smoking.
Yeah, but I mean, so I do not think of that as part weed and puffing as part of, you know, what eases life and eases the conversation, and, you know, and was a very normal thing. Now there are, you know, part of the book is about drug addiction.
Yeah.
So I don't want to soft pedal that or shy away from the horror of that. The narrator, has, takes a journey down drug lane.
Yeah.
And, it puts him in some very precarious, life-threatening, soul-threatening kind of situation. So, I think that, drugs are like anything else. I think, you got to know how to manage it, and some people can't manage it. Right. And for those people, there are alternatives, I guess, like, NA and AA, and I hope that, when people read the book, there was a brother who came to the reading in LA, a young brother, and he told me that he was in NA, right? And that, he was really looking forward to reading the book. And I said to him, talk to your sponsor first before you read this book, because there are some, I do not shy away in this book from talking about how drugs feel, how cocaine feels, and when you use it. And I didn't want to send that brother back out into, on a run. So I hope he talked to his sponsor before he read it. But anyway, I just say all that to say, you got to make peace with all the things that are in life. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them can be good if you handle them right. Some of them you can't handle, and you need to move on.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate it that you did explore that, because that's another thing. I mean, that's another component in which people can connect to, either having experienced addiction themselves, or knowing someone around them, or And I think that you did a good job of writing about it. And as we've already said, it is a very casual thing. We're not saying that, cannabis is the gateway drug. I don't think people believe that anymore. But as you said, people who struggle with addiction need support.
Yep.
What is the status of cannabis where you are?
Illegal, I'm sure. I wouldn't even bother to ask because it's a conservative. Everything happens everywhere, but it's a very conservative place. Even around homosexuality, homosexuality it could be legal, could be illegal. I'm not even sure. But bottom line is it's risky. Right. And even in countries where homosexuality, in Africa, I'm talking about, is legal, there's still all sorts of, risk of blackmail, risk of, being, ostracized from your family and from your job. So I know you didn't ask about that. You asked about weed, but I'm sure it's illegal, but I guess it's culture that really, makes certain behaviors just kind of, unacceptable. So I keep that on the wrap when I'm here.
But when you're away, like most
is it time for me to talk about my puff experience now, or did that come later?
Well, we're not.
I'll hold it.
We're not.
Sure, you're gonna put a puff mode.
We're gonna have to spin our magical wheel that tells us whether or not. You know what? This is the thing about our podcast. Folks have been listening to the podcast, and now they know when the EPL moment happens. Oh my gosh!
and people, I'm sure everyone is looking forward to it. When I get to tell my puff story.
Tell your story.
Well, before we get to our Eat Puff Love moment, we are going to spin our wheel that tells us which of those three you get to choose.
I don't care what your wheel says. I really don't. You spin it if it will make you feel better.
Are we ready? Let's go ahead and spin the wheel, everybody. Come on.
Right. It's not even a real wheel. I can hear it.
Now, see, Cary, you can't be calling us out on the show now.
So what you get? What I get?
Our cats have been calling us out lately, and it's okay. We're going to keep it.
His wheel, right.
At least you can at least go online and get a sound effect.
It's so much
roulette wheel.
But you know what? I've been thinking about switching up the wheel. Maybe the wheel sounds like...
No. I like the and your moment is Puff. Cary.
How did you get a Puff moment, Cary? Wow, we had
just lucky. Just lucky, I guess. Oh boy. So this is my moment now.
Yes, go ahead.
Tell us.
Not every day we have novelists.
Because it's funny, because when you guys were kind enough to invite me, I was like, well, what happens during the show? Do you puff while the show is on? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we normally.
Okay. Obviously, I can't do that where I'm sitting. But as I mentioned, I just got back from 2 weeks in Thailand for the International Family Planning Conference, which was just amazing. And I've been to Thailand before, but it's been quite a while. And have you been to Thailand?
I have. This is Vybz. I've been to Thailand. I used to live in South Korea, and I would go vacation in Thailand. A whole lot.
Oh my God. Then you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The food, the temples, it's just a very, just rich kind of culturally. So anyway, weed is now legal since the last time I was there.
Yeah.
And there are weed shops on every corner in the kind of, more touristy areas. And I don't think it's legal to walk down the street smoking. But so I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some edibles, right? Because I was a big weed head back in the day. And, graduated to other things and don't really smoke too much weed. So anyway, so I'm in the shop and, I see a cookie and the lady says, and I say, well, how much of this cookie should I eat? And, the Thai, they don't speak English. Many Thai people don't speak very good English. So she said, just a little. And I'm like, come on now, I know how to do this. I'm gonna eat half. And she's like, eat it if you want. Like she had this look on her face, like, if you that big and bad, go ahead. Don't come back here. And so I ate half a cookie, and oh my God, something about edibles. I don't know. I guess it's because they kind of go into your stomach, and I don't know. That shit had me going for hours and hours and hours. And
That's about right.
And I said, and I kept having to say to myself, just go for the ride, because it was really intense. And once I relaxed and just said, let me just go for the ride. I know I'll eventually get back, and so I went for the ride, and I'm like, wow, I can't wait to, try that again.
Now, where were you? Were you in Bangkok?
Yeah, yeah. I was in Pattaya. The conference was in Pattaya, but then I went. Pattaya, yeah, you say it so nicely. But then I came to Bangkok. What were you doing in South Korea?
I taught English there. So real quick, 2008 economy crashed. I needed a job. I had a friend who was teaching in Korea. He said, why don't you come here? I'll get you a job. No problem. At the time they were paying $2,000 a month, free housing, a whole hell of a lot of vacation. So I said, absolutely.
Right. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
And always been trying to get back to Thailand because it was my happy spot. I mean, you were talking about the beautiness of the people, the food, the culture. It's the land of smiles. I mean, that's what they call themselves.
The land of smiles.
Yeah.
Right.
And Pattaya, I don't know about today, but in 2011, that was the last time I was there. Pattaya was off the hook.
It was, I mean, I didn't really party there because I was there for the conference, but when I went to Bangkok, man, like up and down that Siloam. Yeah, Siloam. I guess Siloam just means street though, right? But like that whole area there where all the gay bars and clubs and it was just so much fun. And even as an older person, how should I put this? Like, I'm not really on the scene, like in the States. I'm I feel like, I'm not, that's space for younger people. But like, I even felt comfortable just kind of hanging out a little bit, enjoying, listening to K-pop, listening to Thai music in the club. It was just great fun.
Yeah, it is fun, and we're never too old. I mean, hell, hey, as long as there's a party, there's always going to be a party.
Oh my gosh, this is Vybz.
Well,
y'all.
Well, yes, but I mean, I do as I've aged, as I've gotten older, I do sort of feel like, there's an appropriate way, I think, for a man of a certain age to be in the club. I'm not saying don't go or be ashamed or don't, but I think you have to be, there with a certain calmness and not like hitting on everybody and
not the dirty old man who's
exactly
right. Because we all remember that person when we were younger.
We all remember him exactly.
We don't want to become that. Right.
I promised I would never be him. I gotta be the cool old guy, in the corner. So.
Well, I just hope that anytime you go out, and I know you had a wonderful time in Thailand. You seem like, based off the book and your writing and all of the great work that you've done and you are doing, that I'm sure you find time to just disconnect and enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
because we all need to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Check out Cary Alan Johnson, the author of Desire Lines. Where can they find your book? Where can they find you? How can people get a hold of this book? How can they get a hold of you? Tell us all the information we need to know.
Sure. My website is CaryAlanJohnson.com. One word, CaryAlanJohnson.com. The book is available on Amazon. It's available elsewhere too, but Amazon is probably the best place. In Kindle version and a paperback version. And, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, at Johnson Desire Lines. So I'm totally accessible, and I love to hear from folks. So if any of you listeners, hear this, have some questions about the book or anything else I could help with, I'm super open to communicating.
Yeah, and could you also repeat the collectives that you were talking about earlier?
Sure. Yeah, and check them out. Check them out in terms of Google. They're not around anymore, but the history of it all. Right. The Black Heart Collective was in the early '80s, and then Black Heart. And then other countries, there's been a few articles written about, the other countries writing workshop. That was in the mid to late 80s and early 90s. Okay. Yeah, published 3 volumes. So yeah, you can find them on Amazon as well.
Nice, thank you. Yeah. Join us by subscribing to wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and remember to eat, puff, love.